what's going on? This is Derrick, and you can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Hey, I had my mic turned down. All right, so I'm back in Montana, back in my home office. It feels good to be home. And I thought I would throw a little drone footage at you from where I live, and looking forward to the spring, the summer, and getting back out on the lake. Lots of fun. It's finally warming up. It's about 55, 60 degrees here on the way home, so really excited about that. So tonight, what I want to talk about is tracking time and why that's important and how I track my time. And the reason why I was thinking about it is actually over the weekend, hanging out with family, but I did do some work. So as I was doing that, I tracked my time because those few minutes here and there, updating a website or checking email or even just making updates or answering the phone, they're all things that are billable time. And that was something that I struggled with for a long time when I first started my company, my business, whatever you want to call it, freelancing, was finding I guess I had a hard time charging for anything that wasn't physically pushing pixels around. So if I wasn't actually in Photoshop or actually doing some sort of design work, I didn't feel like I should be billing for my time. And so it took me a long time to get over that and to get to where I felt like there was value in the things I was doing. In yesterday's video, I talked about how to educate people who don't value what you do. And part of that process is discovery, where you actually discover what they need and how you can help them. And so in doing that, that's all time that you should be billing for. So for example, if I was going to make a logo, think of the Nike logo. It's just a swoosh, right? It's real simple. A lot of logos, a lot of the best logos are very, very, very simple. And if you were to just jump into Illustrator or, Photoshop or InDesign or wherever you're making your logos, and just do that, it would just do it. Get it? See what I did there? All right. Sorry. These are the jokes, people. If you were to just make the logo, it would maybe take you, 10 minutes, maybe an hour tops, right? So should you only be paid for that time you put into it? And the answer, of course, is no. There's some value there, but there's also time spent thinking about it. Even while I was driving home, in my mind, I solved a handful of problems for work, and I had almost a 4-hour drive home. And so as I was driving home, I had a lot of thoughts going through about how I was going to make this project or do this thing or pull this off, or even tonight's live cast, right? What was I going to talk about? And these are all things that you should be tracking your time whenever possible. So the way that I track my time, let me just jump in here real quick and show you what I use. So I use this app called Harvest. If you go to getharvest.com, you can see it. And I will post a link to that in the comments after this video. Full disclosure, if you follow the link, you'll get a discount, but it'll also give me a kickback as an affiliate. It's not why I'm recommending it. I fully believe in it. I've used it now for many years. When I first started, I used Excel spreadsheets, and I just tracked my time and then exported it and kind of kept it safe in a file in case clients ever asked. And then I did my invoices with spreadsheets. It was kind of a mess and really labor intensive. So then I used another just app on it was actually an iPod at the time because I had Verizon and iPhones weren't even out on Verizon yet. So I bought an iPod and I used an app, and I don't even remember what it was called, but it was just a really, really basic time tracker. So currently there's a lot of ways you can do this, but we use Harvest. And the reason why I like it is because I can track my time. So if I scroll down here, you can see the screenshot. This is basically what it looks like, and I can show you an example of mine here in a second. But you click the big green button, and then you can choose from a drop-down list of all your projects that you've already put in. And then from there, you can choose a specific task. So for me and for our agency, we pretty much charge a flat fee for everything. So everything we do is at $125 an hour. It used to be, if it was, design or something else, we might do 60 an hour. If it was development, we might do much more per hour. But then we decided, you know what, our time is valuable across the board. We're just going to break it down flat rate and make it easier on ourselves. So we don't really break it down that way anymore, but you can. It's really easy to do in this app. You can break down each task with a different price point, or even make it so there's no charge. So we have some admin tasks where we don't bill the client. Not many of those are non-billable tasks, but we do have that as an option in case we're doing something that we feel like we shouldn't be billing the client for. But what I really like about it, and part of what I was thinking about, was when I was on the road, it's got an app that syncs with this service. So when I'm on the road and don't have my laptop in front of me, let's say I'm in the field in a photo shoot or doing something, where I don't have my laptop in front of me, I can open up my phone, and even if I don't have Wi-Fi, it'll still save it to the phone and then push it up to the server later and sync it up. So It's really easy to track your time. And what's amazing is, you might have 15 minutes here or there, an hour here or there, and all of a sudden you might have a significant amount of time spent on a project. And a good example of this would be, let's say you're working for a nonprofit project. As you guys are starting out, maybe you're doing some work for free or for cheap, or finding whether it's churches or clubs or bands or friends or things that need your work. What's going to happen is if they have to go back and get permission or get feedback from everybody in the group, all of a sudden, these half-hour phone calls or all these little meetings add up to where you're spending a significant amount of time. That simple, quote, simple logo or simple video or whatever you're working on, you might realize later, dang, that was like 20 hours worth of work. So I can't stress enough how important it is to track your time. And this tool has been awesome for us. We still use it. Obviously we don't use it as much right now. Like I said, I have a full-time job. We still have a couple clients that we have on the side where we track our time. But this has just been a great tool. And it's actually what I use to track time for the company I work with, because I want to know, am I giving them the value they need? Am I working too much? Am I not working enough? Like, where am I at in the whole life-work balance situation? So this is really cool. It's something I would highly, highly recommend. Let me jump into my version of it real quick. So this is my day today. And obviously I haven't tracked my time today, so I'm not practicing what I preach at the moment. But I mean, in theory, if I was a good student today, I would have already had my time for what I did. But since I'm not, we can add some stuff in. So I'll click on this big new entry button, this green one, and you can see you can click on the project or task. So right now you can break it down by client. And then within the client, you might have multiple projects. So for example, this one, I have a general task. So anytime the client calls me and I just go to work on stuff, I'll usually throw it in the general task just to kind of get it up and running. And then usually I'll create a project based on each actual project. So in this case, we had a logo and we had a website design we did for them. So you can see I've got a lot of clients in here, and basically just pick what you want to work on. Right now, I'll pick one that we do a lot. We have a personal time and projects that we track our time. And this is kind of a catch-all. If it's not truly a client yet, or even if it's internal stuff we work on, we want to know what we're tracking our time with, I can click on that. And then we have our tasks. And again, these are all things that you guys can set up. So all these codes correlate to our QuickBooks. And then we also have them kind of broke down. And this might be broke down even more than you need to. Maybe you just break down by web design or print design. At the office for the company I work for, I actually have it broke down by remote work and office work. So I work remote a lot. And so what I end up doing is tracking the time that I've actually worked in the office versus the time that I've worked out of the office. So if I go to last week, and I got to enter in some more of my time, let's just click on one of these guys. So I worked remote for most of the day on this one. Let's see, I've been working remote a lot. This one was working from the office for about 8 hours. And then when I pull a report, let me click on this up here. Let me go back a couple weeks. So what I can see then when I pull my reports is a really detailed breakdown of how many hours I was in the office and how many hours I was working remote, which is really helpful just for me to kind of make sure there's a good balance there, and just kind of an accountability to make sure that, again, that I'm actually working and doing the work. And then that also gives me the freedom when I know that I've got my time in, that I can go play. I can go do the drone shots. I can go do, the traveling, seeing my family, or doing whatever else, or cutting out early to go paddleboarding or whatever, because I know that I finished my work for the day and things are good to go. So that's what I do. And you can kind of, poke around, check it out. There's a lot of ways you can do this. The other thing that's really cool, and right now this is all messed up for me because I don't have this as billable, quote, billable hours, because I'm getting paid a salary for these tasks. But when it was just our agency doing this, we could also track. So this big 0%, usually what this would look like would be like, 70% or 80%, meaning 80% of your time that you're doing is actually time you can bill for. So the other 20% or 30% is stuff like taking out the garbage or doing things that you can't actually bill a specific client for. So that kind of helps keep you accountable and helps you see, is your business healthy? Is it doing well? Are you going to be able to pay your bills that month? The other thing you can see over here is the billable amount. So this is how much that you could be billing the client, and then how much you have yet to bill them, this uninvoiced amount. So again, these are showing zeros as this example, but it's really, really helpful. And then one thing that even more, this is all good stuff. This is all stuff that you could do in an Excel spreadsheet. So, but what really makes this even more valuable and let's see, just really pivotal for our business, let me jump in here to features, is the fact that this syncs up with invoices. So some of you have asked, well, how do I make an invoice? And when we first started, it was really bland. It was really bad. I basically went into, it was either Pages or Numbers on the Mac. Actually, it might have even been Excel. I don't even know. One of the default apps, went in there, found a template, and we just filled it out. So it looked a lot like this invoice thing here, but I had to go through and manually type out each line here. So very time consuming, really easy to make mistakes and make errors. So what's cool about Harvest is I can pull a report and immediately generate an invoice. And again, because I'm not really using it in this capacity right now, it's not going to work like that. But I can jump into Invoices, create an invoice based on the project of the client, or even do multiple invoices based on, the weekly period, or however you want to do your breakdowns, whatever you've agreed to with your clients. And then when it sends it to them, via email with a web link, so they can either download the PDF right from their email, or they'll have a unique and secure link. They can check it out. And for them, especially the bookkeepers of the business, are going to want to be able to see that PDF or push print on that invoice. Even more than that, though, you can sync it up with Stripe or with PayPal, and there's a big button that says Pay Invoice. So they can click on that invoice and pay it with a credit card, and it's immediately deposited into your PayPal account. And then depending on how you have that set up, it'll either go into your actual checking account or however you're doing your PayPal stuff. But that has been probably literally the reason. This whole app, I would say, is a large reason of why we were able to stay in business. We, cash flow, money flow is such a pivotal part of running a successful business. And so being able to get paid, to harvest the funds, the harvest that you've worked so hard for is the most important thing. There's been months, and this is the part of the business, owning a business, that has been, honestly has sucked, is we've had months. This was a while ago now. There's one month I remember we had over $10,000 billed out between, I don't know, 5 or 6 clients. It was just it was an interesting month for us. We did well. I mean, that was really just my wife and I. So I can't even, I remember when I was thinking, oh my gosh, I can't ever imagine making more than a few $1,000s. But the point is, we had all this money supposed to be coming in, billed out, and not one client had paid on time. It was just a weird fluke thing. It was good clients. A couple of them were a little, iffy, but then we couldn't pay our bills, and it was really, really stressful for us getting started. So, we talked yesterday about the clients that wanted to pay, $15 for a video, and how to kind of navigate those waters and find better clients. But sometimes stuff just happens. And so for us, we never start a project until they've actually paid us. We never do anything until there's at least a deposit. Now, maybe not paid in full, and it depends on the project scope and the size. If it's a web project, let's say it's a couple $1,000s, we will make them give us a 50% deposit. So that's $1,000 just to kick it off. And if it's more than that, let's say it's, $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever the web project's going to be, maybe, we'll drop it down to maybe 25% or 30%, enough that they're committed to the cause, and enough that as we provide them comps, if they decide they don't like it, they can walk away and we haven't lost any money in the time we've already invested. Because what might happen is, they might say, oh, well, thanks, but, we want to go another direction. But then they take your idea and have somebody else do something that you spend a lot of time in your discovery phase thinking of. And so it's really important to get those deposits, and you can do deposits and estimates within Harvest as well. So we can create estimates based on what we think it'll be, and have that automatically roll into the project invoice for the deposit, stuff like that. So it's been super helpful. I highly, highly recommend it. So we got a couple questions here. Let me look real quick. Would you charge for peer reviews? I guess, Dustin, Dustin asks, would you charge for peer reviews? I think that's part of the reason why we started this Facebook group, was to try and make it so we could all bounce ideas off of each other. And I don't know if you're asking me specifically because you're looking for me to give you a review, but usually I don't charge for that. I feel like we've been blessed with so much. We've had so much given to us, so many opportunities along the way, that I try and repay that whenever possible, and try and help each other out. So if you got a question, man, shoot, let me know, and I'll do what I can. But as far as in general, I think it's great to have a community around you, whether it's this Facebook community or maybe a group of friends you find locally that you guys can go to a coffee shop or wherever and hang out and kind of bounce ideas off each other. I think it's really important not to be in a box, not to be isolated from the design community. Let's see, Ryan. What's up, Ryan? Good to see you again, man. Ryan says it's good to put late fees in your contracts as well. That's true. You know, the hard thing, and we learned this the hard way. We lost almost $5,000 one time. It was a client out of New York, and we were working with. See, the way it worked out, it was a pretty big company. I don't remember what the company was, what they did. I'm trying to think. Anyway, our main contact, we found out later, had done a bunch of stuff that was, he'd basically been fired for. I got some on the webcam here. He'd basically been fired for. And so we were in the middle of a project, hadn't gotten our deposit, and then found out later he had been fired, and the project we were working on hadn't been approved by his management, and they refused to pay us. And we were like, well, you know, we have a contract and whatever else. And because I'm trying to think, how did this play out? This has been a few years ago. It had to do with, because he didn't sign anything that held him to the state of Montana's laws, short of us basically flying to New York and knocking down the door, there's nothing we could do because basically the contract was null and void. So that goes back to one of the earlier episodes. I think it was, actually, I think it was the first and second episodes where I talk about how we set up our business. We had a lawyer involved to help us, you know, figure out what to put into those contracts. You know, late fees are helpful too. Kill fees are helpful. And what a kill fee is basically like we both reserve the right to just decide to quit the project at any time. But if we do, you know, X amount will be due to walk away. And part of that is just, you know, we've slated time to do your project, right? So let's say we've turned down a bunch of other work and all of a sudden you decide, nope, never mind, no thanks. Well, now we've got nothing to do and no money coming in. So that kind of protects you as well, having that kill fee. Late fees are good. And the way that we would work in late fees, it can work both ways. You could be late on a project and then end up having to give them a discount. Let's say there's a hard and fast timeline and you miss it. It could also be where, so let's say a client, again, back to this design by committee, as I call it. Let's say you've got a group of people you're trying to appease. And that in theory, you should have one person be your contact. So a perfect example is right now I'm working with a golf course. And there's about 5 or 6 people involved, but there's one guy that I talk to. So I know that if there's a change to be made, he's approved it. It's all good to go. And I don't have to worry about, you know, the he said, she said, or getting phone calls from multiple people. And then I do one change and, you know, somebody else doesn't like it. So that's important. But when you run into those types of scenarios, it's really easy for all of a sudden a week to go by, 2 weeks to go by, a month to go by, and they haven't made any decisions on things yet. And all of a sudden, you know, your bills are due and this one project that should have been done 3 weeks ago isn't done yet. And guess what? It's not done. So you don't get to bill for it yet. So that's where you could make it go both ways, where you can have, you could charge them a fee if they don't make certain decisions or certain milestones aren't hit. But you can also do, you know, the true late fee of if they don't pay their bill in time. So you could do like a, you know, due upon receipt, meaning as soon as you get this invoice, it's due. You got to pay it. And if it's not paid by tomorrow, it's late. Excuse me. You can also do net 15, which means they got 15 days to pay it, or net 30. You can work out different terms, and everybody's super flexible. Like I know that these are this, you know, if you're in the business world, these are, pretty standard, you know, net 30, net 15, whatever, net 90, depending on the size of the company and the size of the project. These are all pretty standard in the business world. But what I've come to find out is most of the people you guys will probably be working with are going to be just like you. They're starting their own business, right? So it's kind of new for everybody. Some of them will know what's going on. They might be serial entrepreneurs, right? They've got multiple businesses, but a lot of them are going to be, I mean, just being honest, if they're coming after you for help, they probably can't afford much to begin with. And they probably don't know too much yet, because if they did, they probably would just go with a bigger agency, because that's what the bigger companies do. I'm not trying to knock you or them or anybody. It's just the progression of how you get there, right? So you're going to have a lot of the smaller businesses who are going to be flexible. You could say, hey, I want net 14 and a half, right? I want 14 and a half days. I mean, there's a stupid example, but the point is about communication. So if you just talk to them and say, hey, you know, yeah, we can do a net 30 or net 90, you know, pay me in 90 days at the end, but I do require a 50% deposit. And the way that I handle that, I don't like to be a jerk about it, but because you don't want to get, they're going to be excited. And yeah, checks in the mail, or yeah, I'll get you this. And, you know, nothing lights a fire under people as much as knowing their project doesn't start until you literally have cash in hand. So what I'll do and what I'll say is, so excited to start your project. Can't wait. We've slated time to begin on, let's say, what's today, Monday. We've slated time on Friday to kick off, provided we receive the deposit check. Once we get that deposit check, we'll dive right in. And, we might even be able to dive in sooner if you're able to get it here sooner. And that way they know, like, we're excited. We've slated time for it. Everybody's aware that I'm not going to start it today. I'm not going to start it tomorrow being Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, but I will definitely start Friday at best, again, contingent on me actually getting that deposit from you. So that's how I handle it. And it's not about saying, well, I'm not going to do it because I don't trust you. It's just, it's a simple way for that communication for them to understand, like, yeah, we've slated time. We're going to start Friday. We're expecting to start Friday, but we can't start until we get that deposit check. So that's how we do invoicing and time tracking and that whole messy side of business, the whole money side of things. So let me just check real quick. Anybody else have any questions? Hoo-ha. Man, I get all fired up and I talk real fast and then I lose my breath. All right. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. I'm getting a lot better at this. Make sure you ask questions if you have any questions. And let's see, this is episode 8 of this 30-day live challenge. So again, trying to do a live broadcast every single day for the next 30 days. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at dmitchelldesign. You can also check out my new YouTube channel. I'll be posting new tutorials this week. And that's about it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great evening, and we will see you tomorrow.